Disney Parks cast members of Reddit, what's the strangest thing a child has asked you while on the job? Others have already said it, but the adults are the ones who say the really crazy stuff. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff I'm forgetting, and plenty of minor WTF moments, but one that sticks out in my mind was working at Splash Mountain. The ride broke down and we see MS spread out through the ride to go evacuate people. I get to my area to help, and there is a guy who is absolutely livid that it's not happening fast enough. He's trying to get out on his own, and I let him know that he needs to stay put and wait for the group. He was also in the heart of the ride building. That shit is like a maze. You find a door and walk out it and find yourself in fucking Timbuktu. Starting an evacuation takes maybe 10 minutes or so to get rolling, maybe 20 if we've tried to just restart the ride first, although usually we know right away if it's an evac. So it's a bit annoying, maybe, at the most, but you would think it was the end of the world for this guy. He's ranting and yelling, and I'm trying to calmly tell him to stay seated until we get to his log. We get the guests out of the logs behind him. SOP is to start with the backlog in the section and work your way towards the first, and when we get to his log, he starts ranting about how he pissed his pants in the meantime, gesturing at a wet spot on his crotch. The guests in the log behind him, however, who were very visibly sick of this guy, leaned in and said, "He absolutely did not pee his pants, we saw him splash the water on himself to make it look like he did." The guy was such a dick that strangers around him were selling him out, LOL. We did manage to finally get everyone out, and I absolutely did not give him anything to placate him like I would any other guest that's had something go wrong, other than the free fast pass that we had to give him, because everyone gets one. Enjoy walking around the park with your wet crotch, buddy. My daughter was 2 to 3 when we went to go see Elsa and Anna. A 4-hour line, of which my daughter would shuffle forward whenever it would move and then lie down and sleep on the floor when it didn't. Finally, it was our turn. We walk into the room and there's Elsa and Anna. First question my daughter asks them: "Do you brush your teeth?" Then after the thing was done and we're leaving, my daughter casually tells me that that wasn't really Elsa and Anna, the real ones were probably busy. 4 hours, man. At the time I was beyond belief. I couldn't express my emotions, between anger/rage, incredulity, and plain old shell shock. I remember walking away thinking about the Serenity Now episode of Seinfeld, but looking back on it now, it's something I'll always remember, and plus, now I've gotten some karma out of it, so totally worth it. No, it's not normal. Yes, the standby line time can get that long for things that are new or super popular, like Frozen, the Avatar rides, or the new Star Wars stuff, but it's still pretty rare. And with like an hour or two of planning beforehand, you can use fast passes and pick which things to do first thing in the morning or late at night to miss crowds. And if you really want to meet characters, you can do a character meal where they come to your table, which is pricey, but if you bought the dining plan or were going to do a table service meal anyway, the cost is the same and it saves you hours of waiting and lost park time. All this is pre-COVID, of course, so it might have changed since then. I used to think that when I saw how much more patience my brother-in-law had with both my kids and his kids, and thinking he's such a good parent, but he was great with kids, but an utter asshole to other people, so you take the good with the bad. Basically, you do the best you can with the hand you're dealt. Some people are dealt great hands, others shit hands, but how you play the game is what counts. You may not wait in line, but I'm sure you'll help with homework or take a bullet, and to a kid, that's all that matters. Keep doing what you're doing and you'll leave the world a better place than when you got here. Yesterday I went to Disneyland, and I saw the parade. And it was raining during the parade. And everyone was wearing raincoats. And the Little Mermaid was in the parade. And she was wearing a raincoat too. Why? Well, because everyone else was wearing a raincoat, Ariel wanted to wear one too so she could be like everybody else. My castmate friend in the call center that took the call above. They kids were always kind, and the question they asked 98% of the time was, "Where is the bathroom?" The adults are the ones who forget how to act like normal, decent people. I had more than a handful of full-grown adults approach me while I was restocking stuff in the confectionery. They'd point to the stuff in my hands I was actively putting up and, being 100% serious, ask me, "Is that free?" Worst though was on my first day working Main Street in MK. Rope drop had only just happened and I already had a dad in my face demanded to know where the adult beverages were. Mind you, this was in 2017 when MK was still a dry park. When I informed him of that, he lost it on me, screaming questions at me like, how am I supposed to deal with my kids all day? Had I been off the clock, I would have responded with therapy. Not a child but a mother with her 2 kids in tow. How do they work? Are they animatronic or do you have a remote control? Talking about the live wild manatees. P.S. She threatened a lawsuit on Disney for endangering her kids. Near manatees, the gentlest of sea creatures. Giant slow-moving potatoes. Edit. This was for a kayaking trip off-site. The Disney cast members shuttle the guests in a bus to our location about 30 minutes away. I don't work for Disney directly. I run a kayaking business that Disney subcontracts for their kayaking trips. So, former bus driver here, the strangest question I was ever asked is, where do the bus drivers sleep at night? He thought we had houses in the parks and we could choose which one. Best question I've ever been asked was from an adult, and me and the wife still joke about it to this day. I had an uncomfortable stomach that day and I was quite gassy. Thankfully most of them seemed to be silent. On buses, you hear and smell all sorts of things: candy, kids screaming, the guy who hasn't bathed all trip, etc. etc. Well, the time came for me to let one rip, so I sank down deep in my seat and tried to bury one as best as I could. What came out of me was the most foul-smelling thing ever released from mankind. Thankfully, again, it was silent. I hoped to God that no one would notice and just attribute it to another bus smell, but about 30 seconds after the deed was done, the gentleman standing at the front of the bus pushes his stroller aside, leans forward, and says, "Did you just shit yourself?" Hands down funniest thing I've ever had happen while working there. It really is. There were cast member only items that had it. But to be absolutely fair, the question isn't a bad one. The parade starts in Frontierland and circles down to Main Street, so depending on where you're waiting, the parade does start at different times. I don't know if they still have them, but when I worked there was a telecast pamphlet you would grab every week, and it had all the upcoming events, the park's hours, and what time the parade would arrive at specific locations. Someone came up to me, grabbed my lanyard, started pointing out which pins they wanted. All mine are from the 90s because who has cared since then, and I eventually had to slap her hand. She got mad at me and shouted, "We're supposed to trade." I turned to the man she was with and said, "Keep her away from me." She was mentally oblivious, but he looked like he just shit himself. Deep shame, beet red. I've never seen that look in an adult. It was clear that the woman turned off common sense when she entered the park. Funny one about the "what do you mean I can't wear my shirt?" Not a cast member, by the way, just a guy who saw this happen. Few years back, when the Disneyland half marathon was still a thing, it was the morning of the race. Anaheim was having one of its no wind, high humidity, very high heat days. The temperature at 3 a.m. was in the low 90s, low 30s for the people who call soccer football. The ground was extremely hot and the sun hadn't been up for hours. There were talks at the starting line of canceling the whole thing. Anyway, the sun starts to rise and the race is about to go. There is this middle-aged dad in front of me, wearing those short shorts, looking like Steve Postfontaine, if you catch my drift. Anyone who has a dad who was a runner in his prime in 1981 knows the cat I'm referring to. Leather skin, very in shape, but you can tell loves beer, New Balances with calf-high socks. Never stretches because he doesn't feel the need. Anyway, he is in front of me as we are about to start the race. He rips his shirt off. Which, not gonna lie, it's understandable. It was so freaking humid and it wasn't getting cooler. And out of the goddamn thin air, a Disney security agent night crawlers in and starts yelling at this guy. The guy flips on the security guard, telling him it's too hot. The security guard tells him there are kids around. It goes round and round. I swear Disney security just kept appearing seemingly out of nowhere, like those videos of all those snakes trying to eat the baby iguana in Planet Earth, and the dude just disappears. It's a hard place to be in because on one hand, it's a family-friendly place. On the other hand, running culture doesn't give a shit if you are shirtless, so Disney should have prepared for that contingency. Side note, saw a dude at the Disney World Marathon take a water chocolate milk shit by a palm tree near the Contemporary Hotel. About ruined my whole life. So, my aunt took me to the zoo when I was like 6. We were on this little train and it passed by an area with horses. I saw this horse there and was like, is that horse pooping? That's really long. Then it dawned on me, that's its pecker. That thing is huge. How does it walk around with that thing swinging around all the time? I was apparently very loud and all my aunt could do was try to shut me up and hope for the sweet release of death. To be fair though, that horse was like the Ron Jeremy of horses. It damn near touched the ground. I think a better question would be, what's the most outrageous thing a guest has done? I've seen a week-old baby in the park with their family. A family that was there for the mother's last trip. She had a terminal disease, had their cameras stolen at the end of their last day in the parks. They saw the people that took it, and they had talked in a queue so the thieves knew the family's situation. People crossing between floats during the parades, a nice way to get permanently banned from the parks. But mostly, People think that because they paid for the ticket to come in they can't hear the word no when acting up or making a crazy request. No, they did not. We actually saw the two girls that took it leaving our attraction, but they quickly got lost in a crowd of 400 people. It was 5 p.m. and the park would close at 8. So my manager got them a voucher that would allow them to pick up a few disposable cameras from a store and take some last-minute pictures. We were all upset that day. I've seen a week-old baby in the park with their family. All those things are fucked up, especially number 2, but this is something I'll never understand. I doubt the child will remember anything, like wait for them to grow a little older to make better memories and save that money until then. 1 week is even worse, go home and care for that baby, damn. I used to be a pirate that did the pirate makeovers in Magic Kingdom, and I had a little boy probably around 7 in my chair. We were talking about how I live on a pirate ship, of course, and what kind of pirate ship he would want to live on. He asked very concerned, how do you take a shower on a pirate ship, and I said we don't. Then my pirate co-worker next to came and smelled my armpit and confirmed we absolutely don't. Then in return I smelled her armpit to let him know that she also hasn't showered. He didn't ask any more questions after that. Edit, spelling/wording. I wrote this still waking up this morning. Not a cast member, but did have a little kid ask me if I was his dad in front of Thunder Mountain. He decided that my husband and I were his new parents, so he sat down between us and asked if he could have a bite of my husband's Mickey pretzel. My husband distracted him with the Mickey pretzel while I grabbed a cast member to claim a lost child. Cast member told the kid that he knew where his real parents were at. Poor kid started crying that he didn't listen to his mom by not having a hand on the stroller and running ahead of his family. Once in Tokyo Disneyland I asked a staff, how's your day been going? He immediately went somewhere and brought a jar of pickle with him and gave it to me. I was confused, so I asked him. He told me it's a tradition in Disneyland that when someone asks you how's your day been going, they give them a free jar of pickle. People who work in Disneyland PLS confirm if it's true, cause I never found it on the internet. Thanks. Every time I've been, even when things went extremely sideways, like the honeymoon trip where I had to get a wheelchair, it's always been a great time. We were there last Christmas and it just made me smile so hard my face hurt to watch my teenage son, who is autistic, and a CM geek out together about Carousel of Progress, his favorite ride ever. I swear, if Disney ever gets rid of it, they will get a very strongly worded email from my son. LOL, you should have heard him ranting about how stupid it was to change Splash Mountain, another favorite of his, to a Princess and the Frog ride to every CM that would listen. He was kind of irate about it and we tried to shush him, because we didn't want to upset or offend anyone, but the CMS were like, no, it's fine. We hate the change too. I worked at Disneyland as a ticket taker/bag checker. Little boy asked me if I was magical because his grandma told him Disneyland was a magical place. Had numerous kids rub my skin because according to their parents, they've never seen a black person before. People touching you without your permission was one of the worst things about that job. My favorite story is this girl was leaving the park and wanted to know how could Mickey just finish Fantasmic but be on Main Street with completely different clothes. Her mind was blown, hands on her head just trying to comprehend how could he be in two places at once. I told her that he has a bunch of underground tunnels so he can avoid the crowds and get to the front to say goodbye. She was satisfied with that answer.